training for college, but more specifically, it's the rigor of the class. Meaning, the more difficult the class, the closer it is to the classes you'll be taking in college. Are classes in college super easy? Absolutely not. Even basket weaving is hard because you have to study the history of basket weaving. You have to study the intricate patterns in different baskets. So what may have been easy in high school is going to multiply in difficulty when you get to college. Second factor, your admissions test scores. So as we heard earlier, Mr. Burns said, you need a what? On each section on the SAT, if you have a 3.5. For what? 420. If you have a 3.0 GPA, a 2.5, that score goes up. So the lower your GPA, which means you didn't do so hot in those college level courses, the higher your standardized test scores have to be. Period, no exceptions, right? The NCAA does not joke around with that. The next one, strength of curriculum. Again, going back to the difficulty in your courses. The plays that you're going to run on the field are going to be just as complex as the things that you have to learn in your classes. So how you do in one will definitely affect how you do in the other. The way you study in class is the way you should be studying plays and the way you should be studying film, and then we'll perform on the field. Am I right? Yes. Excellent. Lastly, high school grade point average. Going back to consistency and how well you do. Your GPA is not just about that one teacher that doesn't like you, but more so how you perform over time. Your GPA starts the first day of high school, the very first day. It doesn't end your junior year. It goes through all the way until you leave that high school campus. So when you become a senior and you get to school, that is not the time to put your feet up and relax. That is the time really to kick it into high gear because they're still looking at you. Make sense? Moving on. Looking at the SAT at a glance on page 4, we talked about the sections. You have math, critical reading, writing, and essay. Now the first section, which is math, has 54 questions, 44 are multiple choice, and 10 of them are grid-ins. Who here has taken a practice SAT or an official SAT yet? Excellent. So those of you who have taken the test, do you remember what the grid-ins look like? Right, so you've got a Scantron. On the Scantron with the grid-in questions for the math specifically, do you bubble in or do you write in your answers? You write them in. Will you be penalized if you score these incorrectly? No. No. This is the one part on the SAT where if you get an answer wrong, you do not lose points. This is incredibly, incredibly important to hear. The grid-in questions do not penalize you if you get the answer incorrect. In addition, there is more than one right answer for a grid-in question. So, if the answer is 33%, you can write it as 33 and a percent sign. You can write it as 0.33, or you can write it as a fraction, 1/3. So no matter which one of those three you choose, you will get it right. Make sense? So should you answer grid-in questions on the SAT? Yes. How many of them? All. Very good. Now, in terms of the incorrect point penalty that you may have, what does that apply to on the SAT? The math, the critical reading, which one? All of them, absolutely. Now, with the incorrect point penalty, how much do you get off if you score incorrectly? A fourth of a point. I see you've got some people who paid attention previously. Nice. So with that fourth of a point, if you have too many of them, you can sabotage your score. What is the easiest way to avoid that 1/4 point penalty? Leave it blank. Absolutely. I know for the last probably 11 years of your academic life, you've been told, fill out every question, fill out every question. On the SAT, that is counterproductive. If you don't know, don't go, right? When in doubt, leave it out. That will save you so much headache at the end, you will be surprised. So for those of you who have already taken a test and are going to retake it, try that. Now, am I saying leave the entire test blank? Absolutely not. That is ridiculous. But if indeed you cannot eliminate 2 answer choices, keep it moving. Do not dwell on a problem for 5 or 10 minutes because you only have 25 minutes per section. Some of the sections have 35 questions. So if you spend 5 minutes on one question, what does that leave you for the rest?
20.
Exactly. Don't do it. Moving on. The next section, sentence completions and reading comprehension, all multiple choice. What section is that? Critical reading. Write it in. Critical reading. Section after that, one 25-minute essay, and then you have two 25-minute multiple choice sections. What section is that? Writing. The writing is not just the essay. Very important to note. The essay is actually 1/4 of your overall writing score. So do not be confused. You have a critical reading section and you have a writing multiple choice section. Your overall writing score, however, is 25% made up by your essay. So how important is your essay? It's 1/4 of your writing score. So although right now most schools are really only going to look at your critical reading and math score as a prerequisite, many more of them are considering the writing score. Why? Because of the essay, but why? Because of the essay. You have to know how to write, absolutely, and schools are becoming more and more competitive. How fast do you run a 40? Don't lie. Who else in here can run a 40 at 4.5? Okay, that's almost half the room. So let's say you all have a 3.0 GPA. You all run a 4.5 40. What else is going to set you apart? Your essay, your SAT, your standardized test score. Are you seeing a pattern here, gentlemen? Yes? Good. Lastly, the scoring on each one of these sections. Who here has heard the myth that just for showing up, you get 200 points? 400? If you write your name, you get how many? 200? Well, you're all wrong, right? Because if you show up on time, if you correctly fill in your name, address, and today's date, not your birth date, this happens every single test. Someone bubbles in their date of birth instead of that date that they took the test. Absolutely. And your student ID number, which is traditionally your social or the other number that the College Board gives you on your admissions ticket. Yes, you get an admissions ticket. If you do all of those things correctly, you start off with a minimum score of 600. 600. The minimum score in each section on the SAT is 200. Period. It only goes lower if you mess up on the title page, meaning you get a 0. So if you do those things, you already start off with 200 points in each section. So if you need a 420, you only have to get 220 more points in the math and in the critical reading to be NCAA eligible if you have a 3.5. Are you seeing something going on in your head right now? So you're going to fill out the title page correctly, right? And you're going to make sure that you don't answer questions that you have no idea what the answers are. And you're not going to just randomly fill in bubbles, right? And you're going to pay attention to what? That big thing at the beginning, section 1, that they always have you do, the essay. Make sense? Any questions thus far? I'm flying through, but you look like a pretty bright group, so I don't think we need to dwell unless you have questions.
Yeah.
Sir?
So you straight up fill out the information correctly, like straight up, you just go get 600.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not kidding. If you don't believe me, Google it. And it's, if you go actually to the very last page in your booklet, on the back for more information, go to our website. You can see a breakdown. It's also in your books, but you can see a breakdown. The minimum section score on the SAT is a 200. The maximum is an 800. The maximum number of points that you can score is a 2,400 on the SAT. Okay, those are scaled score points. It's not one question, 20 points, for example. So each question is scaled according to how everyone else who took that same test answered that question. Make sense? So in order to get a 2,400, you don't have to answer every question right. You just have to answer more questions right than everyone else. True. Makes you are